All right, let's now get you the latest updates in terms of what is happening in the big elections in Sri Lanka. The counting of votes that have been cast since this morning is currently underway. All eyes are on the three main candidates: President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the main opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, and the Marxist-leading challenger Anura Kumara Dissanayake. The results will demonstrate whether Sri Lankans approve of Wickremesinghe's leadership in the wake of the fragile economic recovery. And under the Sri Lankan voting system, the citizens have indicated their top three candidate choices on the ballot. A candidate has to secure nearly about 50% of the votes, plus one, to be declared a winner. If no candidate meets the majority, a second round of counting will take place. So as the counting is currently underway, Sri Lanka's election commission has said that the country had the most peaceful election ever, and it will thoroughly review any discrepancies to ensure transparency and fairness throughout the electoral process. Earlier in the day, voting progressed under heavy security cover, with booths being manned by public officials and the police. But largely, the voting proceeded peacefully across the Sri Lankan presidential elections that witnessed a voter turnout of over 70%. Now, the highest voter turnout was in places such as Nuwara, Elia and Gampaha, where nearly 80% voter turnout was recorded. And this was the first election in Sri Lanka since the 2022 crisis, when the country's economy had buckled and defaulted on foreign debt due to the critical foreign exchange shortage. Now, here are some of the reactions as to what the voters, of course, expect from the new leadership that would, of course, take over once the election results are declared.
මොකක් හරි දෙයකින් අඩු වෙනවා නම් එයා තමයි අපිට ජනාධිපති.
සාධාරණ විදිහට රට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන් නම් හොඳයි. සාධාරණ විදිහට රට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන් නම් හොඳ නායකයෙක් එන්න ඕනේ. දිනුදු පොල් කියන බලන්න ඕනේ. රටේ හැමෝටම එක විදිහටම ඉන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට වාතාවරණය හැදෙන්න ඕනේ.
And our correspondent Dasuniya Thaura has been tracking this story very closely for us and has sent us this report from Colombo. Listen in.
Counting has commenced for the all-important presidential election here in Sri Lanka as ballot boxes now arrive at counting centres at steady intervals. Registered voters across the island nation headed to the polls from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. throughout the day today to elect the country's next president. They have used their ballot, but the question is, who will be Sri Lanka's next president? Voter turnout across the island was between 70 to 80%, and it is a notable fact to say that the complete voter turnout is quite less to what we saw in 2019, where 2019 recorded a staggering 82.7% of a voter turnout. Election officials at this premise was quite confident that the first few results will be released by midnight or earliest before midnight tonight. Stay with WION as we bring you all the updates real time live from Colombo. Reporting for WION from Colombo, I'm Dasuniya Thaura.
To tell us more as to which way the people of Sri Lanka may have voted and what are the big issues that have been playing on the minds of the Sri Lankan voters, we're being joined by retired Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, who was the former company commander with the Indian peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka. He's joining us from Puducherry. So thank you very much indeed, sir, for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. Now, this is a very crucial election for the people in Sri Lanka, considering the enormous amount of economic turmoil that the country has in fact gone through. But the question is obviously this: has Ranil Wickremesinghe done enough for the people of Sri Lanka to vote him back to power again?
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for having me on your program. This is a very pertinent question. As was mentioned by your correspondent, the voting percentage seems to have gone very high. That is one. The second thing is Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is standing as an independent candidate because his party has got just one seat in the parliament. So, and also he had to take certain measures regarding taxation, etc., to get the relief package for the economic recovery to come in. The other two candidates, Sajith Premadasa and Dissanayake, their if you look at their manifest, it seems to be both are almost on the same lines of keeping the population in mind and their welfare in mind. So I think at this point in time, it is open. As we go along, we'll have to see as to who will get to know this. But Dissanayake, as per the reports which I read a little while earlier, seems to be a little better position amongst the three.
You know, it's interesting that we'll of course get to know. We'll have a clearer picture because counting of the votes is currently underway. We'll know as to which candidate has a clear lead probably by tomorrow morning. But at this moment, considering, you know, the difficulties that the Sri Lankan people have been through, inflation has been a big cause of concern. There are issues of where people have to deal with high cost of taxation, which the government has had to impose to get the funding that it needed to tide over the financial crisis. Do you think these are issues that have dampened some of the enthusiasm that people may have had towards Wickramasinghe?
That is very true, because when the economic crisis took place in 2022, we saw the kind of long lines for fuel, medical facilities were becoming difficult, and in fact, living itself was becoming slightly difficult for the people of Sri Lanka at that point in time. So they expected some kind of a relief. But the bailout that was to be given to Sri Lanka demanded that the tax, etc., needs to be hiked up so that the income can be matched with the kind of effort that the IMF and others are putting in. So it was a catch-22 situation for Sri Lanka at that point in time. And Mr. Wickramasinghe, in his own wisdom, would have taken the decision as he deemed fit at that point in time. But that wouldn't have actually uplifted or removed the problems the people were facing at that time. So it is a catch-22 situation at this point in time for Mr. Wickramasinghe. We'll have to wait and see as to how the counting of the votes take place and how it progresses further.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, General Narasimhan, for joining us and getting us that perspective there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.